Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam, and you are watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies. And today I want to tell you about the absolute funniest movies you can currently watch on Netflix. So if COVID-19 were not enough to stress you out, the holidays are upon us. That means it's time to cram indoors with a bunch of people you see once or maybe twice a year. If you're like me, you could use a good laugh during this time to help get you through it. So here are the absolute funniest movies on Netflix right now. Now, because humor is so subjective, I am going to do my best to explain to you what makes these movies funny so you can determine which of the 10 on this list are going to be the right fit for you. But my sense of humor tends to be pretty silly, but I'll be making some comparisons to some other movies as well to help inform you. We're going to go ahead and start all the way at the back at number 10 with an Adam Sandler movie that I think is one of the best ones he's put on Netflix so far, The Week Of. Now, this is a movie that non-Adam Sandler fans should enjoy. In fact, if you were a fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm like me, there's a very good chance you're going to enjoy this movie, not just because there's a lot of Jewish jokes in it. It does have a very similar pace and feel to Curb Your Enthusiasm. Not as a ripoff, but there are a lot of similarities. And this one also has some very obvious Father of the Bride similarities because Adam Sandler is playing a father whose daughter is about to get married. And she's marrying into a black family where the groom's father is played by Chris Rock. Now, there's a lot less racial jokes in this movie than you might assume. A lot of the jokes are just absolutely silly. I was howling during this movie. I thought some moments in this were some of the funniest things I've seen in an Adam Sandler movie ever. And this is one you could watch with family during the holidays, except for young kids, because it is Adam Sandler. A lot of dick, fart jokes, some sexual humor, not a crazy amount. It's not totally vulgar. It is very fun, and most of the humor is about family. There were moments in this movie where I felt like I was watching some of the funnier parts of The Sopranos or something because this family is just crazy, but it is so relatable. I'm not a big fan of the big wedding day type movies. They tend to kind of feel the same. This is the freshest one I've seen in ages.
When I said no problem, what I meant was no problem. Ignore me.
Now, my next pick is very dry and very odd, but it's also very funny. That is The Death of Stalin. And just by coincidence, Steve Buscemi is actually in both of those movies. I don't think he pops up on this list again, but he's in my 10 and number 9 pick. And this movie revolves around the death of Stalin. Now, this is actually based on a graphic novel, but it's not over the top or anything like that. Again, very sort of dry political satire, and it's performed largely, kind of with the exception of a few actors, with British actors with very thick British accents, and they don't change their accents for this movie. It's odd at first, but it ultimately works really well because you don't get a bunch of people doing sort of these Russian impersonations with these fake accents. You get these real direct performances, and this plays out very much kind of like a stage play. It's not shot like one, but the performances and the delivery of a lot of the sequences feels very much like it was made for the stage, and I like that aspect of it. It's just a lot of fun to watch, and it's a fun experience too. This is the more sort of culturally significant one on this list, but at the same time, I think people that like the dick and fart jokes will get a kick out of a lot what's going on in here, even though this is the highest brow one that I've got on this list. It's got a lot of laughs in it and a lot of just silly, absurd humor. You do have to be sort of tapped into it to pick up on a lot of it. I've watched this one, I think, 3 times now, and every time I watch it, I pick up on all sorts of little subtle things that are hilarious that I did not catch before. Now, if The Death of Stalin was too dry for you, then my next pick is one of the silliest picks on this list. That's Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. Now, in this movie, John C. Reilly plays Dewey Cox, who is essentially sort of a Johnny Cash knockoff. There's some other famous musicians sort of rolled into this character, but it's mostly Johnny Cash. And this is just absurd goofball humor. It's my type of stuff. Anytime I watch this movie, I laugh multiple times during every single scene because it's just so silly. This is a great pick for anyone who loved Anchorman, Talladega Nights, because John C. Reilly, as good as he is when he's with Will Ferrell, he's just as good here. Will Ferrell's not in this movie, but it's that type of movie, and I think even better in a lot of ways because it's just sillier. I mean, it's basically a spoof of famous musician biopics, and it nails a lot of stuff, sort of in the same way that This Is Spinal Tap sort of spoofed the Rock documentary. And it did such a good job with that. Walk Hard does a really good job at spoofing movies like Walk the Line, as well as a bunch of others that you'll recognize immediately. So if you love movies like that, like Walk the Line, the more serious movies, Walk Hard pokes fun at them in a really sort of fun way. Don't expect to have really sophisticated jokes thrown at you in this one. They're not at all, but they all land really, really well.
Only the true Messiah denies his divinity. What? Well, what sort of chance does that give me? All right, I am the Messiah. He is the Messiah. Now, off.
Now, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, it's been on Netflix, it's been there for a very long time, and as funny as that movie is, I actually think The Life of Brian is a much better movie and much funnier because its concept is so wild. This is essentially about a Messiah-type figure, basically Jesus Christ, except his name's Brian, and he does not want anything to do with being a prophet, yet he's being chased by people that want him to be a Messiah and people that want to kill him. It's wild stuff. It goes in all sorts of zany directions, as you would expect from Monty Python. And this is a well-respected movie. It's not like I'm claiming this is some sort of hidden gem. It just doesn't get the respect that some other Monty Python movies get. And I think it's a little more clever and a little more brilliant in the way that it sort of like pokes fun at the concept of Jesus. And I think people that are Christians can watch and get a big kick out of this, more so than almost anybody, because they'll get a lot of the more subtle references. And then I think people that are not Christian should get a big kick out of it too, because it is Monty Python. It's just silly and goofy, and they have a lot of fun with it. And Monty Python is brilliant at being sort of sophisticated and silly at the same time, or sort of in alternating waves. And The Life of Brian is a great example of that.
What do you guys want?
Speaking of classic sort of comedy teams, Cheech and Chong sort of get, not a bad rap, they are, stoner movies, but they sort of get brushed off as being only that, when there's a lot more going on there. They're very, very funny. Stoners obviously get a big kick out of Cheech and Chong movies, but people who have never touched marijuana in their lives could still get a kick out of this movie because these guys are so funny together. A lot of the jokes are weed-based, obviously, but there's plenty that aren't, and even the ones that are, I think just about anybody's gonna get, because they're not that highbrow, but comedy-wise, these guys were so clever. There's a reason they made so many of these movies, but Up in Smoke, in my opinion, is one of the best. It's on Netflix right now, and keep in mind, I've got it above some really hilarious movies on this list. Now, speaking of marijuana and being in a good mood, I have been taking CBD supplements for about a year with what I would consider to be fantastic results. But taking CBD supplements regularly has helped me with two major things. They've helped me not be as anxious just day to day, and my knees don't hurt. My knees used to hurt all the time. I ran hurdles in high school and destroyed my knees, and I don't have problems anymore. In fact, I recently started trail running and do not have any issues with my knees. Point being, Nirvana CBD has sponsored this video, and I have been taking their supplements for 4 months now and absolutely love it. If you've never taken CBD, it's not something that you take and you feel effects of, but it's something you take and you notice a different sense of wellness. I feel better day to day, I'm less achy, and I'm in a better mood, making it well worth the monthly expense for me to buy CBD supplements, and I do genuinely highly recommend Nirvana CBD. Their gummies taste delicious, it's a good dose, they've got other supplements mixed in if you want to try something else that has like melatonin for sleep mixed in with it, and then they've got topical stuff as well, so they've got a good range of products. They've also got sample sizes, which I think is great. If you're new to CBD and haven't tried it yet, a good place to start might be a sample pack see how you feel, and then order more if you do enjoy it the way that I have. So just check out the link in the description below, go to Nirvana CBD, and check out all the stuff that they've got. If you do try it and enjoy it, please let me know about it here in the comments section on a future video, because I will read it and I will respond to you. But let's go ahead and move on with the rest of this list.
It's not the grog, or the scurvy, or the scantily clad mermaids. The best bit about being a pirate is Ham Night! Yay!
Now, my number 5 pick is the only animated movie on this list, and it's the only real family movie on this list, meaning you can watch it with very young kids, and that is The Pirates Band of Misfits. Now, this is done by the same animation studio famous for Wallace and Gromit. These guys are absolutely brilliant on multiple levels. Number 1, the animation style is beautiful. This is classic stop motion animation. The characters, the sets, everything just looks amazing, and it's all in camera. This is real tactile stuff. A great thing to sort of explain to your kids as to how this is different from something that's computer generated. In addition to that, it's just very clever humor and action. There's a lot of action in their movies, even the Wallace and Gromit movies, and it's very brilliantly cut together because it is such a painstaking process. All of their action sequences are very well planned out, and so is their humor, and it just makes for a great movie watching experience. Just every moment of this movie has something a little clever sort of buried in it, and it's very fun to watch. The humor, and it's smart. It's a smart movie that kids are gonna laugh at because there's silly stuff, and that you're gonna laugh at because you're gonna just kind of be surprised at how clever this movie is. If you already enjoy animated movies from that studio, this is a fantastic one that really stands out on its own. And if you're not that familiar with it, this is a great place to start, and I would seek out more things done by this animation studio, like Chicken Run. Shaun the Sheep is great for very, very young kids, and obviously Wallace and Gromit. There's several movies, and they're all really, really well done. Easily the most dynamic movie on this list, and one of the most dynamic movies to have been made this century, is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. This is directed by Edgar Wright, who is most famous for Shaun of the Dead. I love all of his movies, and this one stands out to me for a couple of reasons. One is just how wild all of the visuals are on this one. Even though the story I think is good and well delivered and there's some good performances, all of that stuff takes a back seat to just the wild, crazy visuals. Most of them funny, but this one doesn't have as many laughs as some of the other ones on this list because it's just not a side splitter or a knee slapper or whatever you do when you laugh a lot. It's not that type of movie, but it's a solid comedy, and it's just a lot of fun to watch. It's like watching a comic book unfold, because that's essentially what it is. This is based on a graphic novel series. And the movie itself, the visuals are more dynamic and engaging than the actual comic book itself. It's usually the other way around. And somehow Edgar Wright figured out how to edit this thing together. And it's so wild. There's so many things happening within any given 30-second period of this movie. There's so many little effects and things that are taking place. It's, one, hard to keep up with, but it's also just, if you really lock in and pay attention to it, it's just amazing to watch. I cannot recommend this movie enough. Hopefully a lot of you watching have seen it, but if any of you have not, this is one to watch soon. So maybe you're a little too sophisticated for some of the picks on this list, and you think maybe my next pick, this number 3 pick, is too lowbrow for you. Just keep in mind, this was created by people with an Academy Award nomination, 6 Emmy Awards, maybe more, multiple Tonys, and a Grammy Award all under their belts, and that movie is Orgasmo. So this is actually done by Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the creators of South Park. But Orgasmo is actually about a Mormon guy who gets sort of reluctantly recruited to be a porn star. And as silly as that sounds, I don't know, I don't have a follow-up to that. It is as silly as it sounds. That's all this movie is. There's not any additional merit to it, other than the fact that these guys are just great joke writers. Like, they write comedy really well. It's absurd, but it all works together. It's not as preachy as South Park has gotten in later years. There's a little bit of that in this movie, but it's just a silly, fun time with a lot of crude sex humor. If there's one to just absolutely not watch with the family over the holidays, this would be the one on the list, so steer clear of this one. In fact, you might want to actually draw the shades in your house when you put this one on, but it is a ton of fun. It's really silly. If you're maybe one of my younger viewers, and by younger viewers I mean maybe you're over the age of 17 to watch this movie, but you didn't know about it, this one is a really hilarious sort of sex comedy.
Because look at this. See this? You see that? There's no hair under here, bro. Okay?
What's the significance of that?
It makes me aerodynamic when I fight. I can take danger.
Okay.
Now, I consider Pineapple Express to be I want to say modern day, I mean this movie's over 10 years old now, but I consider it to be my generation's Blues Brothers. I love the Blues Brothers. I think it's genius. I think Pineapple Express is similar to Blues Brothers in a lot of ways. Obviously, there's not all the singing and dancing that goes on in Blues Brothers, but it's a bit of a road movie. It's a bit of a buddy adventure, very much like Blues Brothers. There's some car chases, just like Blues Brothers, and the end of Pineapple Express sort of climaxes in this action sequence that is fun to watch, but the joke in the action sequence is that everyone is dying. Everything's blowing up, and it's a movie that I have watched multiple times over the years and still find absolutely hilarious. Similar to Cheech and Chong, even if you're not a pot smoker, this is a funny movie. Not all of the jokes revolve around marijuana, a lot of them do, but there's plenty of jokes that are just silly and goofy and fun that have nothing to do with drugs whatsoever. And then, surprisingly, there's a bit of heart to this movie as well. This movie ultimately ends up being kind of about friendship, and it is very positive in nature after you get past, all of the killing. All right, my number one pick is one of the silliest movies ever made. I gave it this number one spot, not only because I've loved it for years. I've loved this movie since I was a teenager. I also gave it the number one spot because if you're just calculating it based on laughs per minute, Airplane is easily one of the funniest movies ever made, making it the absolute funniest movie on Netflix right now.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
I don't even know how to talk about this movie. I don't know how to review it. Obviously, this movie is a spoof and it's just silly, goofy jokes, but it's silly, goofy jokes every 5 seconds. And I totally get that this type of humor is not for everybody, but I did try to include something for everybody on this list. People that don't love this movie will probably really enjoy, I'm guessing, The Death of Stalin, which I enjoyed as well. But Airplane, man, if you just let yourself get into it, it is one of the funniest movies ever made because it just gives zero fucks and just goes for the funny. It's not really trying to say anything, it's just trying to make the audience laugh at every possible moment, and it's one of the most successful movies to have ever done that, in my opinion. I love it, cannot get enough of it. Let me know what movies on this list you were most looking forward to laughing to. I will keep making videos like this one as long as you keep watching them, but thanks for watching this episode, and you will see me on the next one.